This is our final night of the Planapalooza, and what a week it's been. We've had quite a bit of participation from everybody. We've had 5 full days of quite a lot of work from our consulting team, and long nights. They were here till midnight last night, and you know, I'm just really excited that we have now gotten to this point, and we've got a lot of great things to show for what's happened so far. Thank you all for your participation. Hopefully you've had a chance to come to the studio and check out what they've been working on. If not, and if this is your first time coming and hearing about this, basically this is a project that the town initiated in order to help improve Pinardville. My name is Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator, and we applied for a grant from the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, and we actually have the grantor here tonight coming to just see what's going on. Ben Frost is back there, so we welcome him. Anyway, this has been quite an opportunity to get to know different residents in the community, and also hear everyone's viewpoints on what could and could not happen here in Pinardville. We've had great response from the business community and from just local people such as the church here lending us their space, and Mike Spiridakis lending us the space for the studio. We've had also great response from different community members and businesses for donated meals for the team and all kinds of things. We also had a student art contest, which I never mentioned that last time, but hopefully you've all had a chance to check out the artwork that's out on the table and vote for one of the students. We actually had 2 parts to it. It was visual art and literary art. And since there was only 1 literary art submission, they automatically get the prize. But there were 4 visual art submissions, and so hopefully you all get the chance to vote for one of them tonight. Whoever's the winner, the lucky winner, will also get a prize. And so we'll announce that at the end of the meeting. And just really glad to be here. With that, I think I'm going to introduce Brian Wright, who's the project principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative, and he can go ahead and reintroduce his team and make his presentation for the Planapalooza. So, Brian Wright.
Can you hear me in the back?
Oh, yeah.
All right, perfect. So, yeah, as Brian said, this has been an exciting 5 days for us. We've had a great time getting to know you all and working in the community and eating your excellent food and getting to spend time right here in the study area in our studio. Let's see, I've got more team members here that you guys didn't meet last time. Of course, my dad's here. You guys saw him, Bill Wright. My wife, Emily Wright, is over there. We've got Pam Stacy. She's over there in Florida. JJ Zanetta has done the beautiful artist renderings here. Kara Wilbur is in the back. Mark had to catch his flight back to California, so you missed out on Mark. And forget anybody? And then, of course, all of you who have been so instrumental in what we've been doing so far. I have to say, before I get started, too, you know, we work all over the country and work with all kinds of people and all kinds of clients. And you guys have a really great asset in Brian Rose. He's enthusiastic. He's excited. We've not had better accommodations. He's really taken care of us and gotten all the things we needed. We even have Pam has recently given birth, and Kara is about to give birth next week, and so he had a glider in there so they could do their sort of motherly things. And, we had babies coming in and out. It was really great. So thank you to Brian for all of that. What we're going to do is similar to the last time we were in here, shorter presentation at the beginning though. Just going to talk to you guys about what we've heard so far, what you've told us, how we've heard that, and then show you the work that we've done in response to that. And then we're going to open it up for questions and comments. So remember, as you take a look at the things that we've done, remember there's two portions. There's the planning portion, and the planning is just the stuff that you guys have talked about that might make things better in the future, that helps work on your goals and aspirations, hopes, and dreams, while being firmly grounded in the realities of who's going to pay for this. We've heard that a lot. And then also there's the zoning portion that is kind of cleaning up what's wrong so far and making some of these things a reality. So the planning portion, if you don't like things that are in the plan, don't freak out. It's not a foregone conclusion. If you don't like one thing in the plan, don't freak out. Think about the things you do like first, and then tell me all the things that you don't like. Because a lot of times we have a tendency, if we don't like one thing, we think we hate the whole plan. So here we go. How do we get down the lights? So this is where we started. Back in this room, we had a bigger crowd. I think it was lots of people gave lots of good input. We broke out into the table exercise here, and people rolled up their sleeve and drew markers, and there were planners for the night. And we all had lots of good conversations, lots of fun, lots of smiling faces, which was great. Nobody got in any fist fights, which is really always important. Lots of pointing and lots of listening as well. So these were some of the maps that were generated during that process. Green dots for things you like, red dots for things you need improvement, and blue dots for things that are areas for opportunities. And we took all of that information and all the things we heard and distilled it into these kind of big ideas. So here are some of the things we heard. And again, these were not unanimous, but these are things we heard multiple times. So redevelop Mass Road with more inviting stores and restaurants, increase sidewalks for walking, add bike lanes along main roads, improve traffic flow along Mass Road by removing/adjusting traffic lights, too many dead-end streets, add more connections, don't connect existing streets, so there's point and counterpoint, increase public access to the water and add public spaces from the neighborhoods, relocate or improve the elementary school, remove restrictions on businesses that want to develop, and make a center for Pinardville with the central civic area. So, we had people coming in throughout the week. That was really cool. I literally got to drive this tractor. And you see the shadow right here? That's a car that I almost ran into. That was really scary, but we got a good photo op there. We had these meetings with specific topics, and we learned lots of things. We had the interim pinup, and people gave us feedback on some of the initial concepts. And then just throughout the week, people just would stop in. Hey, I saw the sign. Hey, I heard, but I couldn't make it the other night. And they just kept dropping in and dropping in. It was really, really great. That's part of the beauty of all of this, because if you can't make it to the main meetings, then you can come when it's convenient for you. So from all of that, we started to work on developing a set of guiding principles and a common vision statement. Again, this is, it looks kind of well put together, but we just did this morning. And so this needs some massaging and refinement, I'm sure. So here's the common vision statement as it stands now. This is a working statement. Pinardville contains a diverse range of citizens who share the common goal of improving the community and providing for the needs of the current and future generations. With a strong sense of history, Pinardville residents are committed to protecting existing neighborhoods, enhancing commercial areas, encouraging economic development, increasing connections to natural areas, and maintaining a strong academic presence within the region. There's a commitment to striking a balance between individual interests and the overall community, with an emphasis on being a good neighbor and not overburdening municipal services. So I'm going to just leave that out there. That's going to float right now, so you guys can marinate on that as we move through the process. This is great because as we were looking at some of these concepts in the interim pinup, we got some really good feedback that helped guide us in tracking some things. So I'm not going to read all of these to you. They'll be available and you can read them in detail. But I think that we've taken some of the concerning language out and replaced it with things that we all talked about and agreed upon. So celebrating Pinardville's unique identity, increase access to open space, beautify Pinardville and create community centers, remove barriers to quality development while protecting property rights. We're protecting them. And then improve streets and transportation choices and increase tax base and practice fiscal responsibility. So these are all kind of the common themes that as we were looking at the things we're doing and future decisions that can be made in this area. These people will refer back to these concepts. Again, these are just working statements and can be massaged as we move forward. Now, the other thing we had, the other team member that's not here is Rick Chelman, who is our transportation engineer. He's from New Hampshire, and he came over and gave us a lot of insights into some of the issues we heard about on Mass Road. Everybody was talking about traffic, congestion, some of those kind of things. So he came out and said that the traffic volumes on Mass Road are actually going down, even though there's a perception that the traffic is getting worse. So what that means is there's some inefficiencies in the system, even though there are fewer cars. The increased congestion is due to the increasing number of driveways and poor signal coordination. And people have told us, if you can fix the signals, like when the Rite Aid was out for 8 months, things work better. There's too much reliance on Mass Road for circulation, because right now, as you go down Mass Road, you go in and out and in and across and in and out to pretty much everything you need to do on Mass Road, instead of coming in and dealing with a secondary network of streets that can allow you to stay off of Mass Road while still circulating either vehicularly or in a primary circulation as a pedestrian or cyclist along Mass Road in a pedestrian-friendly environment. So we started to look at and break down and analyze some of the areas around the town, and we looked at creating primary circulation patterns. This goes down to the college. This is Mass Road here. Here's the river, obviously. Looking at making green connections, utilizing things like the power line easements and other areas of green infrastructure that you already have. We looked at starting to enhance the streetscapes on some of the neighborhood roads to encourage people to walk down and patronize Mass Road. We looked at areas for opportunities, different sites that were underutilized or vacant where something might happen, something interesting might happen. And then we looked at what has probably been the most controversial thing of the entire Planapalooza, and that is connections. We heard in the first meeting people want more connectivity, and so as we started to look at that from a pure planning perspective, as an outside third party, not thinking about each person and what it meant to them, but thinking about if we're trying to solve the transportation issues along Mass Road, what is the best practice to do that? And so these purple lines here represent connections, opportunities for connections. We showed here the Neville Road that was never built, looking at resurrecting that. We looked at connections here along, Joffrey and some of these other roads, connecting onto Daniel Plummer. Now, this was probably the one that got people the most excited, or the one we've heard the most about so far. This is the first time it's ever in Planapalooza history we've had a petition circulated. So that's really cool and exciting. That means that people were listening, and then they came and they told us about what's going on, and not everybody signed it, but a large majority of people had. And it's interesting because as we were thinking about it, I think the thing that primarily got people most concerned was looking at connecting into the condo complex there. And that's, people were concerned about that, all the traffic coming through. And so, our general approach is that's fine. We put it up here and then people respond. We propose and you dispose. And so as we were thinking about it and seeing kind of the reaction that we got from everybody, instead of just saying, well, we're going to take that off the table and we're not going to present it in the final presentation because we know a lot of people don't like it, we want to put it out there again. However, in thinking about it more and the feedback that we've gotten, we started thinking, well, what are some options that actually accomplish both goals? Because one of the big goals is not having people kind of whiz through with all 200 people live in the condos, I think, something like that. And so how can we accomplish the connectivity that we're talking about while not having so much through traffic? Now, what I've been telling the people who live on these streets who've also been complaining about the traffic on Mass Road is that you're complaining about yourself and your neighbors because you are, in fact, the ones who are on Mass Road. You have to get on Mass Road for everything unless you're literally just going down the street to your neighbor and then going back home. We also know that you have already traffic coming through your streets, all the people who don't realize that they're dead ends because the signs are there, but they're kind of being, everything else is louder on the street, full of notice. So we heard there's 30 to 60 cars a day that go in the wrong ways and have to go back out. And so what we were thinking was, rather than having the connectivity go all the way through to the apartments, actually just being able to, this is in direct response to the outcry that we heard, just having the connection one to the next. And so these guys can connect, and they can get to Daniel Plummer but you don't necessarily connect it to the apartment. So you still have some of that connectivity, because one of the people who lived on one of these streets said, this would actually be really good for me. It will save me 15 minutes a day when I don't have to get onto Mass Road. And so that was interesting and important for us to hear. So that's one idea. The other idea.
How would you connect them? I don't understand. How would you connect the people in the three streets? The Hay, Payne, and Joffrey.
There's the land between the condos and the end of the roads there.
There's only a row of single trees. I don't know if you've been up there.
It's a small area.
Yeah,
this is one of those things that it may not even be practical to do in real terms. We just draw it. Because usually what we find is even if things seem complicated, difficult, challenging, and sometimes impossible, there's always a design solution by which you can accomplish the goal, if it's something you want to accomplish. So the other option is, this is, again, completely out there, but maybe we actually cut off the connection at this end of the street to Mass Road and only have this connection. And so you guys actually don't have to get onto Mass Road at all. And so you're not adding traffic to it. You're only coming out on Daniel Plummer. You either go this way if you want to get on 114, you go this way if you want to get on Mass Road. So that's a crazy one. That's way out there. But again, thinking outside the box, anything's up for grabs. So we know that. We hear you loud and clear, those petition signers, that this is not something you're excited about or interested in exploring any further. And as you go through this process, then you simply just continue to let that be known. One thing we said was, don't worry about having to get all your signatures before tonight, because we're not voting. This is just a process of talking about concepts, of visioning, of moving this forward. And so then as you actually go through an official process, it's not, do we want the plan to move forward or not? The answer could be, we love everything else about the plan except for this stupid connectivity thing you're trying to do on my street. And so what I'm going to say is, I like everything but that. So approve that, everything else, and take that connectivity stuff off the table. That's kind of the discussion you have as this, to get these things moved forward. And this may never even make it to a public discussion. This may fall to the cutting room floor before it even gets there. So that's kind of the getting the controversial topic out there to discuss, so you guys know that we are paying a lot of attention to what you're saying. So the other thing we did was, we went out, as we talked about before, and did these synoptic surveys. This is where we go and measure your streets so we know exactly when we're talking about setbacks and building heights and things, not just relying on exactly what your existing zoning ordinance says, because in some cases there are conflicts. And so we wanted to say, what is the actual condition in the field of these streets that people love so much and are worried about protecting? So we went out and measured, and that all goes through the process, and we looked at each of these different character zones that we had talked about in the previous meetings, rather than separating uses. We went up to the village and looked at some good precedent for some things you don't have as we're talking about creating these centers. And then even you guys kept talking about Milford. And so we went over and we studied the Oval. And we measured that and saw what the interesting setbacks were in building heights and things like that. And so we wanted to make sure we understood what the issues were. We looked at the zoning map, and we found a lot of things that needed to be cleaned up, because people are saying, well, why do we need to do anything? Why are you even here? We just like it how it is, and those kind of things. Well, if nothing else happens, we're here, and we can help. This can be cleaned up, because right now, the river and the lake are zoned residential. I don't know what that's about. The entire campus of St. A's is zoned residential, and so anytime you want to do any kind of campusy thing, you have to go get a special exception. We've got the ball fields here, zoned industrial. A lot of things are actually just artifacts or remnants. That makes sense, because that used to be the dump, but now it's a park, a place where people go and play, but it's still zoned industrial. And we saw some things like the commercial and the OSB2. Yeah, that. They're very similar in their nature, and so we started to look at how to create the new zoning map based on these ideas of these character zones. And so we looked at keeping the existing residential as they are in this third character zone, which is residential, with the same kind of dimensional characters constraints that you currently have, while fixing some of these weird little things that you have when you're trying to go in and add on to your house and do a porch or a deck or an addition or those kind of things. Then you have to go through this kind of annoying process, and we're going to clean some of that up and fix the setback issues. So that kind of falls into this tan zone. And then the light purple is the fourth zone, which would be more kind of commercial and mixed use. So it allows for detached single-family residential. It allows for commercial. And then in the middle here, and where everybody identified as kind of the main node of activity, we did the fifth zone, which is a little bit more urbane in character, but it's still a small area. So as you're coming through Pinardville, you go, oh, this is the center. I know, it's obvious to me because things change here. And as you progress along Mass Road, you'll see that. We went ahead and made a special district for the university. So it has its own standards, and they don't have to go and get special exceptions and things to do that. But we also recognize that they own a lot of land, and so a portion of that land we've shown in this fourth character zone. So it can be set up for things that would allow for more student housing and being able to kind of integrate into the existing neighborhoods there, and starting to connect up College to Mass Road to the main node there, and that becomes important. We've then converted the civic space as well as the rail trail into this actually called a civic zone instead of industrial. And then looking at the park there, Roy Park, that we set it up for a civic zone, the church over here for a civic zone, and then the fire station as well, and some other little areas that the town currently owns that are just tucked away and zoned as currently as residential. And now the water is water. It's no longer zoned residential. So those are things with the zoning map. So these are these character districts. These are renderings that JJ did while we've been here. This would be your typical residential street in this tan zone. Does this look familiar to anybody? Kind of looks like your streets. You see some of the houses here. We don't see as many two-story houses, but there are some. We were tempted to put sidewalks, but we know that it's tight in there. People were concerned about being able to have sidewalks. The streets are pretty slow speed, pretty intimate, especially when they're not connected, and so people tend to just kind of walk down the street, which is appropriate in some areas. In other communities we go to, they say the first thing you've got to do is give us sidewalks. I can't believe we have to walk down the street, So it's easy enough to add sidewalks if you want them, but it's you have to go through a little bit of process. So here would be the fourth zone. So you start to see some commercial coming in. This actually still looks like a house, but it has a cafe in there. People, have outdoor dining, walkable streets, on-street parking. What we found is, though, that the right-of-way on Mass Road is variable, not the same width the entire length. And in some areas, it's too tight to have on-street parking on both sides, and so you just have it on one or the other. But the on-street parking has a couple of functions. One, it provides some sort of right out front parking for businesses, but it also helps to buffer the pedestrians from the moving vehicles in the center lanes. And you see street trees, and that gets to be tricky when you guys have all these power lines overhead. So some of this stuff you have to figure out and finesse to get it to work right. So then moving into the fifth zone, so buildings are kind of pulled up a little more. There's not really greenery in front of them. This would happen just in that node in the center. Buildings are a little bit taller, so you get some 3-story buildings. We asked in the last presentation, how tall is too tall? What's acceptable here? And we heard, kind of for the majority of the area, kind of 1 to 2 stories. But then in some of the other areas, in the more intense nodes, we could go kind of 1 to 4, maybe 3, kind of 3 to 4, 3.5. Kind of that was a general sentiment. So you start to see what this begins to look like. Just looking at now. We take all that, so here's again the pretty picture, and here's some sort of inspirational images, and this becomes a page out of your zoning ordinance. So when you come in and you have a piece of property, you want to do something to a building, whatever, you just get handed this piece of paper, and it has most of everything you need on here. Yeah, you still need to look at the zoning ordinance for the details and the specifics, but what can I do with my property is pretty much answered right here on this page, and it's pretty simple. So we want to make this thing user-friendly, very clear. So we say, okay, out here's where you can do outdoor dining. These are setbacks and building heights, and it's all key to these images, and it becomes really clear and user-friendly. So here are some of the things we observed around town. We heard a lot about how walkable Mass Road was already. Well, this was this morning, and yes, she's walking, and yes, there's a sidewalk here. I missed the shot right before the car whizzed by her. But I would say if this is me, and and I'm strolling my baby, this isn't exactly what I would have in mind when I'm talking about a walkable streetscape. Probably she's brave. She's got this kind of New England fortitude about her. In a lot of places, this people wouldn't walk with this under this kind of conditions. So that was something interesting to me. These are kind of some random observations. Some of the things I'm going to show you in this plan section that's coming up require transformation over time. And many times people say, well, that's totally unrealistic. You just, the building that was there is not there, and you changed it out, whatever. And in a lot of cases, we say, yeah, I know the market's not there. People don't really change stuff much here. And so you really have to stretch and dream big. But we see, for those of you who remember, the Burger King with the blue roof that used to be here not so long ago. And they didn't just cram Family Dollar in the Burger King's building. They took the building down and built a new building. Now, the zoning told them that they had to do all of this in the suburban strip shopping center version of a Family Dollar. Those are the rules. They could have done something else. And that, I do have to say though, as Family Dollars go, that's a really nice looking one. They're not usually so kind of well articulated with the materials and all of that stuff. So good job however you're going to do that. And or maybe they just knew that was the thing to do here because that's what got you guys to come and buy their stuff for $1. So we started to look, as we heard from everybody on these maps and these different areas and places for focus for these different activity centers. So we call up here to the north. This is the Pinardville area. Here's Mass Road. I know it's hard to see; it's kind of light. This is what we call the Ice House District. We really like the Ice House, and we really try to get you guys to focus on it and celebrate it and make sure it doesn't fall to pieces. So we call this the Ice House District. Then we have the Creativity Village and Student Housing area around St. A's, and then we have the Town Common and the Mass Road Connector. So this is how it starts to look. So all of the stuff that stands out brighter than the other things, this is kind of the specific master plans we did. Now remember, we know that we've taken liberties with people's property. Okay, we're providing them with things that they can consider to do in the future. This is supposed to be inspirational for them, for anybody, for you guys to get excited about, for you to find ways to make it happen, for them to decide, oh my gosh, I had never thought about that. I didn't know I could do that with my property. So here we go. So this is the existing condition today at Shaw's in the Ice House District. This is a particularly unflattering picture, I know, but that's what I saw this morning. It's my iPhone took. So here's what we're looking at. So here's Shaw's Shopping Center. Here is Hannaford's. Here is the glorious Ice House. Here we are right now. And so what we've shown is a lot of stuff. So what we've shown is starting to transform this, helping them to utilize the parking lot that they were required to put in by the existing zoning. We've now given them the right to add additional development program to their property that they didn't have before. So all of a sudden here you create this nice streetscape, which we know that shoppers prefer today over conventional suburban strip, parking lot oriented establishments. We are now also bringing to light the stream that runs through here and connects. And these are actually, because there's housing going in here, similar, there's housing on this side, now there's starting to be housing on this side. We thought that, kind of being more realistic about the program, instead of counting on this all to be commercial square footage, which I know people want, and we've provided tons of it throughout this plan. Here we're looking at these actually might be a good opportunity for some cool row houses, which you don't have very many of. And I mean the kind of the version that everyone really likes, that would be facing out onto the stream here once it's cleaned up, using the bridge that goes over now to their remote parking that always has one car in it. It's never used. So we bridged over, and now we have, remember we talked about a secondary network of streets? So you no longer have to go all up and down Mass Road, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. You can get on here, anywhere here, and go through all the way down to here. And so this is a pedestrian connection because that's a pretty steep ravine. And then here we've shown a much more kind of a modest intervention because they had less property, which is kind of lining the parking lot. still have their large parking field in front, which some of the retailers like. And but the big idea is to start to allow for some new and different things to happen that couldn't happen before. One of the things that was we had shown in the previous plan was we had taken out the park here, and we heard loud and clear that that was not a good idea, even though right now it's in kind of a small sliver. People are glad to have it, and so we said, okay, no problem. Let's actually help define that a little bit more. And so we've shown the park back here. These buildings help define the space, and now it becomes a nice little center as you walk down Mass Road through the process. So here's what that begins to look like. This is the Ice House. Here's Shaw's. Hannaford's down there. Here's the park that you have now with some new buildings defining it. Here you can see parking in the back and starting to have this secondary network of streets they can connect through. And you can see how you no longer have to get on Mass over and over and over, but you can still get to all the shops and all the things that they need to help make it viable for them. And here's some of the ideas for the row houses that might be along here. So a big change. This takes a lot of effort. It takes the market to be there for it to happen. But the idea is to give the property owner the ability to do that if they want to, instead of forcing them to only have a massive sea of parking in front as you move forward. So here is what we call the Creativity Village and Student Housing concept. Here's St. A's. If you don't know, here's the road you come in now, and the cool historic buildings here. And so what we wanted to do was start to figure out a way to tie the college into the community more, because it's kind of like once you get across the power easement, it's over there, but you're not quite sure what's going on. And so we wanted to do a couple of things. One is the Creativity Village concept that we're talking about is looking at ways to bring businesses that focus on creativity, on out-of-the-box thinking, on the kind of places that the students are going to want to work in close proximity to the campus. So actually, this is essentially a corporate campus program here. We've left the cool barn building in place. Interior here is a civic space with community gardens, a park, and then these are larger buildings where you actually can have these cool startup companies, incubators, established businesses. And so if you're going to class here, part of your training is, I'm going to go walk over here to my internship. I'm going to get a job here. And all of a sudden we've heard about this brain drain that's going on in town. People now are starting to come here and stay here instead of having to leave and go away. The other thing was tying into College Street. There are existing houses here and here. And so we wanted to provide more options for some campus sort of students housing, but make it in keeping with the scale and character of the existing buildings that are across the street from it. And then also over here, the college owns a large parcel, and looking at doing some interesting dorms and then having these great civic spaces. And one of the things we found is that the park that's over there is tucked away. You have to find your way to it. You have to know it's there. As residents, I'm sure you all do, but kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so what we're trying to do is start to establish a connection so that this road actually can come through and come through here, connecting to the college, so people can walk through. And there's lots of classes and different things that go on at the university that the residents can take advantage of. And so starting to reestablish these connections from the neighborhoods, from Mass Road, all along back to the college, we think can be a really good thing. And then having this connectivity here, now this park that's somewhat underutilized. We've even been out there on nice days, and so now it can start to become much more of a focal point and a feature in the community that people can really get excited about. And then here, this is actually the power easement that goes through, and so we're looking at ideas again for places where people can do cool things. So setting up some urban agriculture, some community garden plots. We know you have some already up by the jail, so let's bring some down into Pinardville. And imagine how cool this transformation could be, because it's a little bit obnoxious having the overhead power lines running right through the neighborhood right there. And so how can we turn that eyesore into an amenity? So those are some of the ideas that we're thinking about in that area. The next area is what we call Cody's Corner. We try to name these places to help kind of bring them back to kind of a reality, something that's important, historic. We found this image on the internet, 45 years in business kind of thing. And I ate there this morning. It was awesome. I know you all have been there before, but and so figuring out a way to take this area as you come in now, there's a lot of heart and a lot of character and years of tradition that are there, and so we were looking at some things we might do in the plan. So here's coming in over the bridge. Here's the bowling alley, and so here we're looking at kind of cleaning up the intersection, pulling this back. Creating a civic space here. So now you go to Cody's, you have some cool outdoor dining. You can sit out here. I have no idea if Cody's going to like this. I haven't asked him, but we wanted to show some ideas of what might happen here and start tying this in to the neighborhoods and making this kind of a node in its own right as you move forward. The other area we've been looking at we call the Mass Road Connector, because we have these two node opportunities. They're kind of close together. In a lot of corridors we work on the areas of logical noding. They're too far apart for you to realistically walk, but here actually you could walk from what would be the main center down to Cody's Corner. And we're looking at this area in particular where the substation is. And we understand they're taking the substation that's right up next to the road, getting rid of it, moving it back, and then making a mobile substation there for trucks to come. They plug in and do something when the other substation's having trouble or they're working on it or whatever. We've talked about a lot of big ideas, and we're going to continue to talk about big, long-term ideas, but I said at the beginning, we like to focus on some things that are small scale, that you can do right away without much cost associated with it. So check this out. Welcome to Goffstown. Here is our substation. Okay? That's not the most welcoming spot. I know that the town owned that spot, so where do we own near the entrance? So let's stick this here. But I'm thinking that maybe a better spot for this Welcome to Goffstown sign might be in Cody's Corner in the civic space there. So people come across the bridge and enter, they know that they've arrived somewhere, instead of them thinking that you guys are so proud and excited of your power ability. And so this is something that you can do next week. It'll probably take a week to have. You can do it next week, and it'll probably cost you $100. I don't know, however much it takes to move this, but small things can make a big difference. When I saw this, I said, "You gotta be kidding me." It's a great looking sign, actually. Let's not see there's some dumb logo and stupid fonts, and it looks really cheesy. This is actually nice. So this is the center. What we heard from everybody is kind of the main area. This is the Mast and College intersection. We had amazing pizza last night from Pizza Market, so thank you, Pizza Market. And it was really good. It lived up to the hype. So we were thinking about, what can we do in this area? The intersection is dangerous, first of all. It's a key intersection, and there's not really much going on there. And so again, we took some liberties. We heard you guys like the oval, and so this is Mass Road. Here's the school. And here is a way that you can create a center for yourself. In the center here, the center of the center, you're able to put the flagpole that we heard that everybody's excited about, that's well lit at night, and anything else, a statue of whomever, Brian Rose for bringing this great plan, or anybody. But then tying into these existing houses that are here, this kind of nice little intimate street that comes around. This is the auto place there in the corner. Not something you usually find at the right there on the town common, but it's there, and so we thought we'd at least leave one thing in its own place for now. And so all of a sudden it starts cleaning up the intersection. It's way safer, totally safe. Our transportation engineer took a look at this and thought it was great. Starting to create civic space around the school, so it's not paved edge to edge. And then you actually can clean up a lot of the circulation issues that you have during drop-off times. At the school, the buses and things can come around through the back in these different ways. And this is another version. Let's see, so here's another version here. So this is a more substantial intervention. The road kind of comes around. This is traffic calming. You're able to circulate around here if you want to. The flagpole now terminates the view. We've actually taken the buildings that are here assuming that there's some desire to redevelop them in the future, assuming that we heard that the school needed potentially some extra space, even though the enrollment's gone down, they need extra room just because with the same number of students they have. So here we showed a grand expansion with the school facing onto the new town common, which is something you might see. And then actually you can imagine this would be a heck of a carpool line right there. Imagine sitting there waiting for your kids, or the bus coming through here, dropping off, some really interesting things. And this is what that looks like from the artist view. So here's the school. This is the new pizza market, people living above. Here's the auto place we left out, like I said, and the houses facing now into the town common. This is a really big version of the common. The first concept was much smaller, much more likely to happen, and it looks like this. So here's the existing shopping center that's here. Here's the school, and here's a small common, which will be great. I mean, can you imagine? You can nearly ignore everything else that we've talked about, all the other improvements that we've talked about, and if you did this one thing, it would change everything. You would have the unique identity you're looking for. People would know that where they are, that they're in Pinardville. All of a sudden now, we've united, Pinardville with the rest of Goffstown. They've got their village, you've got your common. It all works together. People are going to come from up there to down here and vice versa. You now have a place where you can have parades and festivals instead of in parking lots. Some really, really amazing stuff can happen. But it takes coordination, it takes effort, it takes desire, it takes money. It's not free. I want to make sure that you guys all know that I know that, because I know that's a big concern. Actually, in the literary submission that won the contest, she was talking about making pink glitter roads for ponies to deliver electricity, and all kinds of interesting things. And then the last paragraph says, I know I've gone a little crazy with the expenses. However, and I was like, that's such a Goffstown thing to say. That is perfect. That's so New England. Even little second graders thinking about who's going to pay for it. So anyway, so we've put this out here for you guys to consider. Making some interesting and important changes in the future, so you can, if you want to do it, you have a vision, and you can move that forward. So. The Facebook page is going to stay up. Things will be posted. All the work that's been done will be up there, so you guys can sit and scrutinize it and study it and see all the things that you love, see all the things that really freak you out, and you can make comments on it, as you've always been able to. Facebook.com/PlanPinardville. And so, what do we think? Let's chat. Who wants to go first? Let's talk about concerns. Who's concerned about connectivity? Okay. You're all sitting together. You should have spread out, then it looks more like, whoa, everybody is. Oh, we got one over there. Thank you. So we've got that. We know that that's the case. What else do we want to do? Town Common, does this seem like, yeah, sure.
All right, I have a question about, I didn't see many in the visuals, pictures of bike lanes. I know it was considered, and you talked about at the beginning as a bullet point. A lot of people talked about that. So, where do we go from here? I didn't see a lot in the visual portions. I didn't see any bike lanes or drawings of bike lanes.
Right. It's really skinny out there. Really skinny. And so, insofar, wow, thanks. I'm going to be up where I can see you guys, but not too high. Thank you. Hopefully I won't fall off the stool. So bike lanes are great. All kinds of bike provisions are great. We'll have some, that are available as part of the document. But in the end, it becomes, where you can realistically fit them. And we're doing good just to get kind of the normal provisions in there for, walkers and drivers. However, in most cases, we want to separate the bike traffic from the pedestrian traffic, because cyclists can go really fast. And if you get hit by one, it doesn't feel good at all. You can really get injured. So there are, concepts for multi-use pathways and those kind of things. They tend to want to be asphalt and, kind of paved in something besides concrete. Asphalt paved multi-use paths, or even some places do, the sidewalks and asphalt out front of businesses tend to not be as visually appealing as, as a normal sidewalk. But the bottom line is, whenever we can incorporate the cycling, wherever there's room, then you should. If the streets are designed like we've drawn them, they'll be safe enough for commingling of the cycles and the vehicles. That's the bottom line. So that's a good, very observant. Yes.
What's your opinion of the center turning lane?
We tend not to like them very much. They, you need them when you have what you have. All these curb cuts. If you have what we have here, you don't need them. You have and that's where you pick up that space to be able to do possibly bike lanes, but at least on-street parking and so when you have a secondary network, you don't need the center turn lane. There was we did look at the need for a turn lane at Cody's Corner, a couple of places like that where you need to turn left and things. But in general, you don't have to have it the whole length. They're not safe at all. It's like you see the arrows going this way and that way, and that's what happens. People are driving down, and I was like, whoa, I didn't realize somebody was heading straight for me. So, yes.
Obviously, just as an example, the green space would be taking away the majority of the parking lot that currently belongs to Pinard Plaza.
Right.
So I don't know the owner of Pinard Plaza, but assuming that it now gets zoned as green space, and that current owner decides they want to sell, but the town, having no money to actually put in the green space, can't buy the parking lot property from that person. Do they then go by the current zoning that allows them to sell to another business so they can move on?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you pointed out, because as I was trying to, at the beginning, draw a distinction between the plan and the zoning, all the stuff you see in the plan isn't for zoning. We're not going to zone that as a civic space. It takes too much, if you zone it as a civic space, it's not for buildings, and then, therefore we've taken the value from that property owner. So definitely not. It would be zoned in the C4, in the 4th character district. And then if that all moved forward, there's a coordinated effort, you wanted to sell the property, the city wanted to buy it, somebody donated it, whatever, then you would revise it to be the proper zoning. Similarly to what happened with the ball fields that went from the dump to the ball fields, you'd change the zoning like we're looking at fixing it now. So that's a great point. Thank you. Yes?
Out of 6 people that were asked if they thought this was going to be a good idea to open up Joffrey, Tane, and Hague Street, 65 of them agreed that it was not a good idea. And not all people have had a chance to voice their opinions yet or sign the petition, because we just found out about this just a couple of days ago. Okay, a lot of people work during the day, they're not available. But all the people that I spoke to that live on these streets, and also in the condos, they don't want this to happen because there's a lot of small children. It's going to create a potential that the small children can get run over. The streets aren't wide enough to handle any more traffic. It's going to create problems for the residents to either leave or access their property. It's going to increase the traffic problems that already exist at the corners of Joffrey Street and Mass Road, because we do have a couple of businesses, and they've been good businesses. Super Suds, our car wash, and also the Dunkin' Donuts. It's already busy at that corner, so we don't want to enhance the busyness, right? And it's going to endanger, I think I've already said this, endanger children's lives in question. As a matter of fact, my neighbor's dog almost got run over yesterday because a car was coming down the street. He's a resident of Joffrey Street, and her dog ran out. So if you increase traffic, the poor little dog, you're increasing chances of him getting run over. And actually, the people with condos, they don't want more traffic. You're going to be dumping more traffic on Mass Road, because the people that perhaps from the condos can use our side streets to go down, but see, they're coming down Mass Road, so you're creating more problems, right? And if the people are coming off of Mass Road, it's going to create a problem for us. And you're not talking a very big section that you're going to clear up. You're only clearing up 3 streets, perhaps. If that's the point, clearing the traffic. And also, the condo association owns the land. The town does not own that land.
right.
And you're talking about a buffer, a little buffer, that's a wooded area. We would be for, I think most people would be for maybe a gates for fire trucks to go in case of safety issues. There's a space on Hague Street that's almost opening up, so a gate for trucks to go in, I don't think would be a problem. However, though, as residents, we came here to Goffstown because the lots are a little bit bigger, and being on a residential street is a little quieter, and to put it, people must sleep over this the other night. And we know that this is only a proposal, but we're upset because it's on the map, you know, and I just want to voice my opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Just
we.
laugh if you agree with that.
All right. So what we know is that most people in the street aren't excited about it, and now we also know, we didn't know this before, that some of the people in the apartments and condos are concerned about it. So that's good to know for sure. We do know that at least one person that's been talked to is in favor of it, and so this is one of those things where. You know, in the end,
person's dog almost got run over yesterday.
Right. Yeah. And so what happens is, right now your streets, I call them the ribs, they go into the spine of Mass, are, they're quiet because they're dead ends, right? But they are, they're pretty reasonably designed. Some streets in some neighborhoods, even dead end streets, are really wide in other communities. So it's not so bad as what we see elsewhere, but we heard the people racing, you know, it's kind of racing down these streets. I mean, they do it right now. And so, you know, some of that comes from the fact that they know that no one else is going to be coming down. It's like, oh, well, unless we happen to randomly encounter somebody coming out of their driveway, we're good. This is a drag strip. And so, you know, it can work both ways for sure. If the roads are designed properly, if the streetscape is set up properly, cars are going slow enough. So even if the dog does get hit, it's not dead. Even if a person gets hit, it's not dead. These things, you know, it's true. But it's, you know, people get hit even.
It depends where they get hit.
If the head or the body.
The injuries can be worse than
That's
death,
right.
though.
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I happen to live on Joffrey Street, and I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old boy with autism. And my 6-year-old boy with autism does not, as most people with autism, pay attention to safety.
Sure.
So what you say about the person wouldn't be dead hurts me a little bit, because sometimes my boy, you know, will not pay attention to the road. So, you know, I think it's perfect the way it is.
Thank you. All right, what else we got? So we hear you loud and clear, by the way, and we're taking notes. And
Can
now
we
everyone
out
knows
the
this.
proposal? That's what we would like.
In the end, we take it all in and we hear what everybody has to say. And, you know, at some point we make decisions about what goes into the plan and what doesn't. No, we. And so, you know, generally, and I've never actually had somebody ask me to take something off the proposal, off of a map before through this process. So, even if they didn't like something. So that's a new one on me. But so I don't know quite how to respond. We can, you know, if the planning department, if the town, if the committee, if the rest of the town says so. But see, the problem is, this is very interesting. And do you know what they do in Australia when they're making decisions about planning and zoning and things? They actually bring people in from other communities and they vote on it. Because what happens is, I know this sounds terribly un-American, it's Australia, but what happens is when you're asked to evaluate something that's in conflict with your own personal interest, you know, it's hard to separate what you think about your lot, your street, your neighborhood, your Pinardville, your Goffstown. And so if you bring somebody from the next town over, they look at simply just what makes the most sense for everyone and take into consideration, too, the specific concerns. And so you look for, and in some ways, I guess we act as the Australians. You know, we come to town and I don't live on that street, you know. I'm just telling you, here's what the best practices are. If you want to fix Mass Road, you can't fix it with all the dead ends on it, you know, as they are. But there's not only one way to do it. You don't have to connect it all the way through. There's other things you can do. So, you know, just kind of with my professional hat on, and the transportation engineer backs that up. And so it's a very interesting system. And so as we go through this, in the end, what comes out for vote comes out for vote. And it's one of those things. I don't know how your votes work here. Is it all or nothing? Yes or no? Black and white? Or can you do approved with conditions? It's approved so long as you don't connect Joffrey Street. Is it yes or no?
Yes.
It's either
Well, when I asked that question, if you remember, I asked, is there going to be, can we put separate warrant articles on for the parts that we want to work on right away? Brian Rose said, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So my question to you, since I don't like what you said about Australia, because I think individual trumps community,
right.
When are you done with the process, and when does it come our meeting?
We are done. We're going to take all of this stuff, put it together in the document. We're going to take the zoning, do that. We submit it to the town and go through a review process, and it goes into the official approval process that you normally have for any kind of a zoning thing. So one question I had, kind of back, you brought up the individual rights, and this is something that as we've had meetings, I've told you guys that these kind of specific concerns are not something that I face most places around the country. Within reason, of course, everyone's worried about individual rights, but not to this extent. And so one of the things that it's hard for me, I wish that you had said 67 out of 67 people said that they don't want the connectivity. What do we do about the one? This is something we can't put a privacy fence around. This is something, and so it's hard to, figure out for me. So then we say majority. So the people on the street, the most people on the street get to say what happens, and then that one person's out of luck. Or is it everybody in Pinardville gets to vote on it, or everybody in Goffstown? Or is it simply just those people who are negatively impacted by it get to vote on it, and the people who like it don't? So it's hard for me to figure that out, and so that's, I guess, why it's good to have options.
The 65 will convince anyone. They will. No, 66.
Yeah.
The 66 will.
No, I doubt it.
So.
I'm not sure this is just to prove a point. Everybody has an opinion.
Yes,
all right? Everybody
that's
has an
right.
opinion.
We all do.
And we should respect people's opinion.
And you guys have actually done a really good job with that all week long, so I
That's
appreciate
right.
that.
The one thing I'd like to do to put on record, though, if there's any changes to be done on either Joffrey, Hague, or Catania, please notify the residents in writing, all right? Because a lot of times things are passed without people knowing.
Right.
We didn't even know this was put on the proposal until we asked. My husband asked, what does this little purple lines mean? Okay, we didn't know, okay, specifically what this meant. So I think this is very unfair. Things could get passed to vote, and people could vote on things that they don't even know about, or it doesn't really concern them, and that's not fair. So we're asking on record, okay, to please notify us in writing for the people that live on these streets. So at least we know, okay, to be there, okay, because people work, okay, they're busy, and it's not always convenient for them. But if it's an important matter, maybe they can make alternate arrangements that night, to be wherever they need to be.
Yeah. And in fairness, the reason why nobody knew about this until 2 days ago is because it wasn't invented until 2 days ago. We just literally came up with it. So, but yeah, you should be notified for sure as you go through this
So
process.
a lot of times it's only the butters.
Yeah.
So it's the people that live in the street. God forbid, if they're gone on vacation that week and it goes through. And we have these nice houses too on some of these streets. They're maybe close to $400,000 houses right on the corner. And believe me, if they find out about this, we haven't had a chance to hit them up because they were working. I mean, this is upsetting. If you're going to have a street going through your house, pretty much, it's very upsetting.
Got it. All right. What are some things people love?
I like
Things
the
we
school
like.
idea.
I just have a little comment here, and with you, I have two things. With you, I'm sure you look at it as you have maybe five very big options that you're putting out there and suggestions, and we seem to have this one quagmire on the side, which is Joffrey Street. So I'm sure you have to wrestle with, is it worth it to lose all the other four because of the fifth quagmire?
Right.
And then, when you've done this in other towns, particularly the area by where the Bartlett School expansion is projected in your plan, there was a strip mall there.
Yeah.
Do you know in other towns where you've done something similar to this, where you have eliminated a strip mall area, how those towns mitigate that? Is there mitigation, and how do they mitigate it?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the first thing is you don't just go and say, we'd like your land for our town common, please, thank you.
Or your
You know?
businesses. I mean,
Right.
there are certain
Exactly.
businesses.
So, so what happens in that case is it would simply just be either, some benevolent person donating, which doesn't happen that often, or there'd be a purchase of the property. So that takes money to do that. The thing that's kind of cool about it is when you look out there right now, a big piece of what could be parking lot isn't. It's already a big piece of green. And I was thinking like baby steps. So you guys actually go ahead and make a piece of your common in that, in that area. It's a small thing. In the end, you're not going to go hang out there and have all kinds of parades and festivals in this small piece, but it's like a step in the right direction, and it starts to say, we're doing something. That's something that the property owner could just make happen. It's like he's not using it right now. It's not landscaped or really anything. And so, it's tricky, and that's why we show you guys this stuff so you will never have a center if you don't have an idea of what a center could be, where it could be, what it could look like, how big, all those kind of things. So now you have a way that you can say, okay, if we want to make this town common happen, we can go figure out exactly how much this will cost. How much does this piece of property cost to buy? How much would it cost to make this? So, all of those kind of things. And then also, you can start to calculate what would be the economic benefit if we actually had a center, we had a place where people were coming. And so now we've got a destination, all the benefit to all the other businesses and new businesses that would want to come and be part of that. And so there's no good easy answer. There's a million ways that people do it. In some places where people aren't as concerned about government kind of interference and stuff, they do public-private partnerships. In other places, they just count strictly on the market to do it, and on and on and on. And so, if I'm the landowner, I've got my strip center there. It's based on the architecture and stuff, it looks like it's been there for a little while, but it's certainly not historic. It's certainly not new. And so I'm going tomorrow to the town and saying, I saw the proposal. What do you think? Let's do it. Let me sell this to you. And then the town says, well, maybe in a few years we can't afford this. And so it just starts the discussion. So there's no easy answer. There's no one way to do it. But places do it all over the place. Of all kinds of income levels and demographics and all of that stuff. It's not only the places that are just rolling in the dough. They can make these kind of things happen. It just depends on how much will you have, and kind of, do you take small bites or do you try to take it all on at one time? It's not a great answer for you, I know, but it's yeah. Who else? Somebody here? Yes.
I want to say I really like the objectivity and the creativity that you brought to this proposal. I really like the idea of the town common. I think that's great. I've come to love Goffstown and what I think of as the character that goes with it, and I think that would really enhance it. One of the concerns that we've all had in town is the concern to have more businesses brought, as you said earlier. And right now, the way it looks, when you drive down Mass Road, you see, until Family Dollar went in, you saw an empty Burger King. You see an empty D'Angelo's. You see an empty Fashion Bug, and probably a few other places. And prospective businesses see that, and they're not going to want to come because businesses are failing. And if we can enhance things, it's like the chicken and the egg. If we enhance things, if we, like it was said at the meeting the other night, you build it and they will come. You make it attractive, and they're going to want to come with their businesses, and that in turn is going to help offset our rising taxes that we've got. And I think I understand the residents' concerns about the connectivity, and maybe that can be minimized somehow. I really like what you suggest, so that people aren't coming on and off of Mass Road constantly and having that connectivity, say, between Shaw's and Hannaford, that kind of thing. I really like that as well.
Good, thank you. I'm just thinking, imagine a Friday night, Saturday night, where people in Manchester say, what are you going to do this weekend? Oh, we're going to go over to Pinardville and hang out in the Common. Do cigar happens? Can you imagine if that happens? I'm going to go over and I'm going to go spend my money and help them out. And it'd take a long way to get there, but right now it's the opposite. You guys are going over there and giving them your money. And so, it's pretty interesting to start to think about that and dream. But it can happen because they're in their own town all the time. You're so close to so many people. You just make it. I mean, it doesn't even take much. You do a little bit and you get an ice cream shop or one thing. Even the first small baby step. And people like to see progress and people like to see things happening. And they start to come out and patronize this place. And it could be really cool.
When I first moved here, I couldn't find an ice cream shop in Goffstown. And that's one of my favorite things to do in the summer.
Yeah.
To go take a bike ride and go get an ice cream. And I think with something like the Town Common, there could be more town-wide events that will attract people from other towns, from maybe Bedford, New Boston, Ware, Manchester even. Manchester's such high density that I can't imagine a young family not wanting to bring their children, say, here for some sort of nice event.
Yeah. Do you guys do outdoor skating rinks? When we were over in Yarmouth, Maine, they have an outdoor skating rink there. It's like people came from all over to go to it. And in some communities we've seen where they actually put up a winter ice skating rink in the common.
That's what it goes. We have one. It is now Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, the gentleman that owns the house where Dunkin' Donuts is used to flood his back for years.
No,
and then the fire.
Swampland. It used to be a swampland, and it would freeze over in the winter, and that's where we would go ice skating.
And so now you don't have it anymore, but you used to recently.
And they used to do it at the firehouse.
So that's something too. So you make kind of a year-round type thing. You could put it in.
There was one by the fire station. They put it up in the winter time. They put the boards up, and then firemen would flood it and go skate.
That's awesome.
Maybe they put in word for it.
Yes.
Because we're on a tight budget in Pinardville, like any other town or city, is there some place that the town already owns that we can create a little green? Also, who owns the little park area by Rite Aid? Can we expand that? I believe there's low-income housing. I think that's the back. So maybe that's owned by. It doesn't matter if it's federal or state or whatever. Can we incorporate something that we already have and expand on that? Instead of spending more money because we are on a tight budget.
Yeah, that's a good point. We got a map that we're just thinking of that same thing because it's obviously easy if the town already owns it. Let's use that. So we got a map of all the parcels that the town owns. Unfortunately, there are not very many. You guys have sold them off, or whatever. There is not very many, and they're not in kind of opportune locations. And I guess probably a good example would be the one park you do have, is town owned, but it's just kind of tucked away back there. It's like wherever we had some land. Like so, for instance, if you put the town common there, forget about it. It wouldn't work. It was just not only is it too small, but just the businesses wouldn't thrive and all that. But yeah, we tried to look at that and wherever we could. Like there was one up north beyond the Shaw's and all that in the neighborhoods up there. We went ahead and put a civic designation on it. There's a paper road that was never built, and so we went ahead and made that civic. So it's like a tiny little trail, through a place. There's a pond there though, so people could go up there and I don't know if there's fish in the pond or whatever, but just trying to go ahead and bring those places that are already owned by the town that could be available for recreation and things, and bring them back to life and through the zoning, so that people know that they're there and that they're available. They're not private property.
Rail trail is nice.
Yes.
And that's right back to Sean. That's not very
For
far.
sure. Yep.
Did everything? I mean, I don't know if this is a stupid idea or not, but did everything maybe in the park or school? I mean, if they wanted to create a little park, we already have that in. We have someplace else that kids could go to school. I mean, maybe we have to think of, not making someone
I think that's part of the private development, right? Yeah, the private developer owns that, and they've been nice enough to make it available. The school is owned not by the town, I think, right? The school is owned by the school board or some, so it's not on the town property roll. However, it wouldn't have been a bad idea had the town owned it, because what's neat about it is the addition on the school, the part that's closest to the street, that's more kind of 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s looking. The original school is right behind it, if you know, and so you literally could peel that part off, have a nice civic space there, expose the original cool school that could be part of it. It's not in the, generally when you create a center or a common, you want it kind of at the intersection of roads. So that's the one downside of that site, but, if that's the only thing you could do, then you do it, unless it means you're going to do it instead of doing the other thing ever. If you're like, well, we could save our money for a little while and do the real town common at the perfect spot, or we could do it right now and do it in this spot. But that's not a bad. There's no stupid ideas. You should know that through this process.
It wasn't walking to the school a big issue too, because everyone in so
Yeah.
the kids could walk to the school.
Yeah, creating safe routes to school and those kind of things is always important. Especially, it's great. I mean, a lot of communities have moved their schools out of the neighborhoods already, and so there's no option to walk, and so you guys still have that luxury. Assuming that the route is really safe. Yes.
This whole master plan you're coming up with, you put as one warrant article next year?
I don't know. I think that was generally the idea, but it seems like we've heard some ideas of taking some really controversial things and putting them on their own. Yeah, right. So that may be a good idea. But I think Brian, the question was: is the whole master plan intended to be one warrant article, or kind of what has been said before? Can we take some of these hot buttons and make them their own issue so it doesn't kind of bog down everything else? Because it seems like there's maybe only just really one issue, at least that people are willing to talk about right now.
Okay, so just want to make sure for clarification purposes everybody understands this is how it sort of works with a master plan. Master plan documents are something that the planning board will actually review. They'll put it out to the public for a public hearing, and then the planning board is actually the one that adopts the master plan itself. The SMART code would be the portion that goes out onto the ballot on the warrant article, and you would be voting on the coding portion. That's the portion that amends the zoning ordinance. But the master plan itself goes to the planning board, and the planning board sort of makes that approval or disapproval or whatever it is. So if in the planning board discussions the planning board says, we've heard the community loud and clear, we don't want that connectivity stuff on there, they'll say we're going to approve this master plan with crossing off those connectivity things, and then that's how they'll approve it. Or we're going to not approve it because we just can't accept it. There's too many things that are wrong with this, and so then maybe we'll go back to the drawing board and make a few changes or something that can make the community, the planning board and the community happy enough, and then they'll take it back and put it before the public hearing again. And if everybody's good with it, then they'll approve it. So hopefully that sort of answers the question.
Perfect. What else we got? Yes, ma'am.
How long does it take for this whole process?
We are, what?
Roughly.
Yeah. We are trying to get you guys the documents in pretty short order, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. It's kind of so we don't lose the momentum and the excitement of all this. You guys don't forget about all the things we talked about. And so getting it to these guys, as much as you, and then we'll get it to these guys to start moving forward.
So
Mr. Rose, can you
just
make sure that we're notified, okay,
Yeah.
about these connectivity things here for all the residents on Joffrey, all the residents of Hay, all the residents of the Main Street? We want to know if it goes to a vote so people can actually come, okay? And we need to know, let's say, a month ahead of time. Could you put this on record this evening, that you will assure us that you will notify us before anything goes through, please? Because we don't want to wake up one morning and that our roads are connected to the condos.
Surprise!
Okay, we don't want to,
I would be careful about promising to give notices that aren't required under your local ordinances.
Yeah, I was gonna explain sort of how the notices go out for planning board approvals. Normally, the planning board hearings are noticed on our calendar for the town. However, in this project, we have done outreach to the community for this, and we could for sure consider some way of reaching out to the committee and to the community and making sure that people are aware of when those public hearings will be. That's something that, as part of the grant, we promised to make sure that people have the outreach that they need to be able to understand and participate in this process. So, I think we can easily come up with some type of situation, some type of way of making sure that you guys all know. And I don't know. I can't promise you, I guess, that I would mail it because I don't know how much budget I have to be able to do that. But
out of $50,000,
within,
you're not talking that many stamps. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I will pay for my own postage when I have to.
unfortunately, my $50,000 is dedicated to paying my consultant. But I do have a limited budget that I can put towards some notification. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I do have all your emails. So anybody who's come to these meetings, I'll be shooting out emails to all of those folks, and we can post it on our website and lots of different ways of still, and on the Facebook page, and so there's lots of different ways of reaching out to people still.
But you sent us a postcard this time.
I did, and I had a fair amount of funding to be able to do that. However, now that's diminished because I sent you the first one. And the
bottom line is this whole process, is you've seen how open this has been. The idea is to hear that. Obviously, we're not going to stay here for the next 3 months until it's done and all of that stuff. But I think a couple of things. You guys have taken the initiative to come out and participate. You found out one way or another, and you told your neighbors, and you did a petition and all of that stuff. And so, all of the information will be in the normal places it's supposed to and required to be by law. But also Brian's, talked about he's willing to send emails to all the people who participated. And then you guys, if you could help in making sure you send it along. I can't imagine you won't. But yeah, the point of this isn't supposed to be surprised. There's bulldozers last night. I know you didn't hear them, but now your street's connected. It's not about that at all. That's not.
At least an email.
Yeah.
At least an email. We would appreciate that.
I'm a committee member in that neighborhood. I will notify.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go.
That's your share. That's right. Yes. No surprises. Cheryl's on the ball. All right. Anybody else have any last comments? I'm trying to get you out of here early, but as usual, I'll stay here as long as you guys are going. Yeah.
In your professional opinion, if there's one thing that we could do at Pinardville to strengthen the business base and the business community, the tax base that supports the rest of Goffstown, what could we do? If there's one thing we could all get behind, what would it be? For business, not for parks, not for bike paths.
Yeah.
For business.
Straight up business.
Word of mouth.
Two things. Can I give you two? I'll give them in order though. Okay. Two things. The first thing that you can do is civic space aside. That's one of the things. Make the town common. That's the second thing, because that's harder. The thing that you could do most easily without having to go purchase a bunch of property and those kind of things is fix your streetscape. Make these, you notice that in the character zone images and the renderings that we showed, there's no town common shown. Where is it? There we go. There's no town common shown in these. This is just a great streetscape. There are plenty of places that have just a main street with no civic space. They're not as awesome as the places that do have a civic space. If you can fix this, if you can get rid of the in and outs and all the curb cuts and solve the traffic problems, because right now a lot of people, even though you seem like you have a lot of traffic, people are avoiding it. That's why your traffic counts are going down. People are avoiding going on Mast Road, and they're just skipping you. And so if you can fix that, fix the traffic, fix the kind of the character and the appearance of this, that's probably the biggest and most important thing you can do, because you've got to make it where it's a place where people want to go. Because there are plenty of other dollar stores and plenty of other hairstyles places, and there's plenty of other Subways and all of that stuff. And so if you guys have the least attractive version of all that, and not that you do, please don't get me wrong, I love this place. But if somebody has an option to go to one that's more exciting to them in a better location and whatever, then they will. And you guys know, you all do it, I'm sure. There's this one restaurant that you love. It's in the middle of nowhere, but you go because of that place. It's called a destination business. It's like we love that food, or we love the character of that place, even if it has crummy food sometimes. We go because it means something. It makes us feel good to go there. That's what you have to do, first and foremost, to get the business stuff going here. And then the town common will be huge, but harder. Okay. Yes?
If Manchester were like Boston, what would Goffstown be like?
If Manchester were like Boston, what would Goffstown be like? What is this, like the SAT?
Alston, Brighton.
Can I pick anywhere in the country? I'm not from around here, remember?
Oh, you're not from the Northeast? I'm sorry.
No, I'm from way up. See, that's how I'm so impartial. I'm from Tennessee. So Kara is from the New England. She can tell you. Where? Quincy? Yeah. You have any ideas? That's the hardest.
What is your answer?
That's the hardest question I've ever been asked.
Saugus might be a good answer.
What do you think? What do you got for me? What do you think?
I would think none of the above. I think Goffstown should sell themselves to Manchester and just get it over with.
That was a good one.
Brian, if they took a dividing line and put it in Grassmere, Goffstown would have to pay for themselves, and Pinardville could take. We'd have a lot of money in Pinardville because we got the tax base here. They'd die in Goffstown.
You guys have a lot of leverage here for sure. It's
Free ourselves from
tax
that.
base.
Make our own little community. Yeah, I hope we vote for a new town.
Well, those are all outside of the scope of our project. So we've introduced you all to each other. For those who didn't know your neighbors already, and now we've opened a dialogue, and so you guys can figure that stuff out. You won't probably see those recommendations in the master plan, but certainly things to think about because it's striking. The geographical difference, separation between at least the village and in Pinardville, and the difference in character and those kind of things. So things to consider. But for us, yeah, go ahead.
I just had two things to say. I'm also a far outsider, which you can tell from my dialect, not from Brian's, but from mine. I think you guys. Now, I may offend somebody in here.
Great. Right at the end.
I hope I don't.
Thanks, Dad.
The thing that this town needs, Pinardville needs.
Talking to the mic.
Are you sure you wanted to do that? They said it's about to offend half the people.
I'm target up there.
No.
Pinardville.
Look, that's part of my dialect, for crying out loud.
I like your dialect. Don't worry about it.
I say Nashville too instead of Nashville, but just as a point of inspiration to you guys, I've watched you all week. You guys continue to downsell yourselves. You have a bad image of Pinardville, and you nearly assure that it's going to stay that way by having that image. I can say this to you, I'm from a town that has a really bad image of itself, and I've watched it do to itself for a long time. And it's always, well, like, you know, here we are, and they're doing this to us. At some point, you have to take charge of your own destiny. You can't just keep saying, they're doing this to us. On the point of that business, most businesses look to see, the very first thing is to see how much pride and initiative a town has in itself before they locate there. The combination of those two things is not really working for you guys right now. Now I've said probably enough, too much. It is heartfelt.
No, I get it.
So,
You're right.
Exactly right.
You're right.
What I always tell people when we're working in towns like this, where instead of Saks Fifth Avenue, the next thing that's coming in is a dollar store, right? When we're working in communities like this, I said there's no reason that this place can't be a world-class place. There are places where people travel from across the world to go to a little fishing village here with shanties and shacks and whatever, but they have character, they have heart, they have moxie, all of these things. And every place that we go has the potential to be that place. One community we worked in Vermont, they had the same problem. In some ways, actually more so than you guys do even. We told them, you need to work on your own self-image, and you guys need to have the next thing. Don't just do a plan-a-palooza. You need to do a self-image. You need to bring in a self-help guru, and everybody can sit down and figure out how to know that you can do it. And so, I'm glad he said that, and I'm glad many of you guys agreed, because it is important. You have to overcome this. There's no reason that you can't be world-class place, because you've got the great people. We've met you all. Even when you disagree, you're still great. You're still respectful. You disagree because you care, because you're passionate about these things and this place. And so if you guys can take that passion and enthusiasm and come together and move it forward, there's no stopping you, because your passion is the most important thing. So on that note, I'll stay up here for a little while longer, but we're done. I'm done. Thank you so much for all your work this week. And
just make one comment. Excuse me. It's great to watch this because I live in the village. I've lived out there. My name's Charlie Tempest. I've lived on Oakcrest Road for almost 30 years. But I do frequent and shop here in Pinardville. I grew up on the west side of Manchester, so even as a youth, I was out here. And I think as I watch and hear, and your concerns about your streets and connectivity, that is a concern. You live there. And even if that doesn't take place, it's like you're sharing about the small things about pride in the little pieces. When I go camping, I go up north a lot to Littleton, New Hampshire. I'm sure many of you have been there. It is a Main Street program. But as I drive down that Main Street, I see little flower beds of wildflowers, perennials, what I call little islands of peace. As I drive or walk through the town and go to the Littleton Diner. But the other thing we could possibly do is add more trees. Lining along the side of the street in nice little, not even containers, but in certain quadrants the way it's set up, like in some of these drawings, where these trees can mature and give you that green space thing. But I think another thing we could do pretty easily is when I look in Littleton, they have these posts all the way up and down both sides of the street with seasonal banners hanging there. So in the spring it could be a beautiful banner with daffodils. In the summer it could be fireworks or little kids playing baseball. In the fall it could be leaves, maple syrup, whatever it may be. And in the winter it could be a Christmas scene.
And then possibly to help pay for it, you could have smaller banners underneath of local businesses that help pay for those banners that you could change on a seasonal basis. Yet when I see that in Littleton and other communities around the United States, to me I sense unity. And that's what you're really talking about. It shows pride and unity in your community. So when these other businesses may want to come here, and obviously the ultimate goal is to tear down that D'Angelo's and build maybe a cafe or something else that will also have green space, visitors will come here and say, there's a lot of pride in this town. What a fascinating little place. I want to walk around here. And you see these banners and the trees and the flowers and some other things. Those are small victories, as you had said. Whereas maybe the Common will come. Maybe other businesses will come. Maybe that Shaw's parking lot will have connective streets and the such down the road. But at least, even if it's just banners and trees and flowers, it's a start. So maybe that's an idea. If you haven't been up to Littleton, take a ride up there this summer and walk those streets. Just Main Street. And it's so fascinating when you look around that as I look down that street when I get off the highway, I sense unity. And it's an inviting place where I want to go to and walk around and explore. And that's what we want people to do. So these strangers come into our town and they take some money out of their wallets and spend it here with us. So maybe that's just a simple idea we can try and do it that way.
Great. Thank you. All right. So this is great. So we've come full circle. Now we're all dreaming and thinking big and being warm and heartfelt, which is a lot of this process as well. So this is the end of the beginning, right? So this is just the end of this week, of these 5 days. And then we're going, it's going to go through the process, and you guys are going to have lots of time to give input and all that. So I thank you so much for participating, for coming out over and over, for talking with us, for sharing your community and sharing your hearts with us. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. I have our podcast, and I just want to announce to everyone.
Your bike out today.